Hey, what's up guys? Brian with BS Bassin doing another episode here. This is not my vehicle, a friend of mine's. 2012 or 2014 Jeep Grand Cherokee. Put some bigger tires on this and he needs a little bit more room. So what he ordered was a rough country 2-inch front leveling kit. I'm going to show you guys how to install this pretty quick. It shouldn't be hard and this could help you guys do it at home by yourselves. First thing you want to do is jack the vehicle up. Make sure it's safe. I've got it on jack stands as well as the rear tires are chocked. Then we're going to remove the tires. And it's actually 10 degrees out today, so the sockets are so cold it's kind of hard to hold them. Just remove our wheels, both sides. We'll go on to the next step. Once your wheels are off, you want to remove your tie rod end and your sway bar link. It's a Chrysler product, so you guys know it's going to be rusty. Putting the nut back on here. Now for the sway bar link. So it is an 8mm on the end of that. And if these give you any harder time than that, just use some heat on it. Not too much. You don't want to burn the sway bar link, but it shouldn't be too bad. So again, you see the sway bar link coming off. Remove the nut. Sway bar link itself should be able to move out of the way. You may need a pry bar on it. Get that sway bar link out of the way. From the brake hose harness, give it a little extra room. And there's one behind the actual steering knuckle we'll have to pop out as well. Now we're going to take our brake caliper off. Before I do that, I'm going to collapse the piston in the brake caliper a little bit. Get this side loose so I can see I'm not damaging anything. Get in between the vents of the rotor and the caliper. Squeeze it in. Now that the caliper's loose, we're going to pull it off of the wheel hub. Take those two hoses, put them on the side. From that. I'm going to tie this up to the upper control arm. There, our caliper. It's a little hard for you guys to see it, but I loosened up one brake line here just in case we need a little flexibility there. And I have our caliper zip tied to the upper control arm, which is now going to allow me to remove the upper control arm nut and the axle nut. Push the axle out. Pull the knuckle forward, should have enough room on this ABS line, and then we're going to remove the strut. Axle nut removed. drive mount. It's a 21 on one side and 15/16 on the other. Once that starts spinning, we're going to have to hold it with another tool. Pull that out. See that lower control arm starts dropping down a little bit more, which is going to allow you to get this axle out. We can push this down a lot more. We're going to get our CV shaft out of the splined hub. With the CV shaft out of the hub, you're going to put a pry bar between the transmission and the CV and pry on it. There's a C-clip holding it in. So once it pops out, we're going to support the CV on the end. This may be a little greasy, so make sure you may want some gloves. And pull that CV right out. You guys may notice this gentleman keeps his car very clean, so we're going to do the same. We're going to make sure our hose doesn't touch the car as we take these out. But there's 3 13mm bolts up top. Just going to loosen these up. Now we're done with the top side of the vehicle. Back on the bottom of the vehicle, we're just going to take the strut, guide it out. Control arm does get in the way, and the CV shaft, just kind of guide them out together. Now the strut assembly is out of the vehicle, and we're going to add the top plate. I'll show you how to do that. On this step here, we take our new mount, put it on top of the strut, but if you look on the side, there's a gap between the strut and the plate. The reason for this is that the bolts are hitting each other. So what I do on the rough country for the Jeeps, I set them to the side like this, and I'm going to mark that bolt about right there where that bolt won't hit that nut on top. Set this next to it, mark your bolts, put your nuts on them, and then cut them. That way when you take your nut off, your thread will be good and your nut will go back on easily. So here we go. I'm going to put the 3 supplied nuts down. And they are nylock nuts, but when we're done and we put the plate back on, I'm going to use Loctite. Just going to drive these down real quick. Should be about the same size as the nuts that were on the top. Already? There we go. So now they're cut shorter, and I tried to chamfer the top. We're going to remove the nuts from them. All right, now the same. I'm going to set this down and make sure that none of your threads hit the bolt from the top. See that? Oh, sorry. How the thread has clearance right here between the bolt and the top. Now what we have to do is lift this up and start all 3 nuts before we actually tighten any of them. Otherwise you're not going to be able to get, you don't have enough clearance between the top and the bottom of the other nuts. So start doing this. We got to use a regular wrench to tighten these. You don't have enough room to get a ratcheting wrench in there. Alright, so now I'm going to take that Loctite and I'm going to put a drop or 2 on each thread. Even though these are nylock lock nuts, just want to make sure this doesn't come loose on the customer. I'm putting it underneath the nut on the thread because we didn't tighten them down yet. Let that sit there. And now we can tighten up those nuts. Alright guys, so putting it back together, we have our lift block on top of our strut. Now we have to insert this all the way up to the top. Hopefully it doesn't drop back down. and the axle's out, but I have it sitting on the control arm in position so that it can go in and out easier. What I want to do is just get this in position. And in between the CV boots on the axle, there we go. Now, I'm going to have to do like a reach around from this side and get a nut up on top. Put it in on the top. I'm just going to try to get a nut on it before it slides down. Perfect, so I was able to get 2 of the nuts on the top started. I'll get the 3rd now. Now, I'm going to take this CV shaft. We got to get it into the transmission again. There we go. Slides into place, locks in there. Everything's good. This little washer came off the end of my CV. So I'm going to put that on before I run my CV into my spindle. Perfect. Everything's lining up as it should. Just going to start the nut on the outside so that CV doesn't slide out on me again. Sorry you can't see that, I only got so many hands. Alright. Everything's pretty much started. We're going to get that lower strut mount bolt put back in. Remember which way it came in? The nut was to the front of the car. I'm going to take the lower strut mount. We're going to have to push down a little. Get in there. Now that our strut is started on the top and we got the bottom bolt in, we're going to tighten our lower strut bolt. So with the lower control arm jacked up until the vehicle wants to start lifting, now we're going to use the pry bar on the top control arm, right up here, to get that ball joint down into the groove or into the hole for the spindle. So while we hold this up, I'm kind of using my knees here to do that. Go in between the spring and the upper control arm. I really like to use 2 pry bars here. Once I get one started, once I get this down a little, pry a little more, then get this, the bigger one, step down a little bit more. Now, I can use the big pry bar once I'm getting that aligned, that nut started. This nut was a little pain in the butt when I got it off. So, let's see here. Ball joint spinning with it. So what I'm going to have to do, hopefully that'll hold. I'm going to go 1 step lower on the spring. I'll push this down real hard so that it holds the ball joint, and then I'm going to tighten it. Tie rod's on. We're going to leave our sway bar link off until we finish the other side. Just let it kind of move around here. Alright. We're going to put our brake caliper back on. Perfect. We got to tighten up our axle nut. We're going to put our ABS lines back in that clamp that it came out of. And then I took one nut, one little 10mm nut where the brake line gets held on to the frame. vehicle. We're just going to tighten that back up. And this side's done except for our sway bar link, which we're going to leave off until we finish the other side. Well, hey guys, thanks for tuning in to another episode of BS Bassin. Got this WK Jeep Grand Cherokee lifted 2 inches or leveled 2 inches in the front on it. Really excited about it. Looks real cool. I'm sure the guy's going to be super happy with it with these nice aggressive tires on it. Finally sits like a real Jeep should instead of a grocery getter. If you guys haven't already, make sure you hit that thumbs up button below and the subscribe button. Stay tuned with all the jobs that we do in this garage, as well as a lot of fishing in the summer. No, it's ice right now. I don't do too much ice fishing, but stay tuned. Keep posted with our DIYs and how-tos, as well as our on the water fishing, a little bit of hunting as well. Stay tuned. You guys won't be pissed.